So you're not operating yourself, so you need to be comfortable with licensing the brand. And there's
Yep.
so much that falls under that. So how reliant is the concept on its founder? Can it operate without the founder being there? What is the
Mm-hmm.
sense of the brand itself? I mean, we're going to treat brands differently and evaluate them differently if it's a restaurant that has multiple locations versus a one-off.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much in the airport space that the time from when the bid comes out to when you submit, for consideration to when you're awarded it to construction to opening, it can be several years. So much of the work that we do also is trend forecasting. Is it going to be relevant, 2, 3 years from now? Is the concept of what you're doing there? I mean, there is no room for error in airports. You're in such small condensed spaces. So you need to be thinking about, can you operate this in a self-contained unit without
Yeah.
commissary or without a ton of extra storage space? Are you able from a supply chain perspective? Is it something where you're going to be able to do? You have to think about how things will get delivered. The process to just get a tomato through the airport, it's harder than getting a person through TSA. Truly.
I would imagine so, yeah.
Wow.
So it's thinking about your ingredients, thinking about the deliveries. There's a concept I developed for SeaTac, which is a concept that's geared around local beers, wines, and spirits, and working with local distilleries and such out in the Pacific Northwest, which was such a fun project rather. It was something where we had to coach them on, you have to think about, you can't use this as delightful and delicious as their beers are, they self-distribute. They have no way to deliver to the airport. So you have to think about, the front end of operationally how things are going to get there and then the throughput at the restaurant. Because for it to be, I agree that, airports, it's not just about it being a revenue driver, it's a brand machine. When it's done the right way, you don't have a better billboard. Because to your point, Claudia, what you
Mm-hmm.
said before, there's a captive audience. You don't have to worry about the foot traffic. They're there,
Right.
and more often than not, they're delayed. So they're hungry and they're annoyed, and they want whether it's a salty sweet snack or Bloody Mary, they're
Yeah, they want to hang out at one of these concepts. But it sounds like it's a really large overhaul for anybody that wants to go into one of these spaces. I'm wondering about the ones, because, whenever you go into an airport, there's usually brand recognition. Like you recognize a lot of the brands that are already in there.
absolutely
And I wonder if that helps. I have seen other airports, though, that are trying to showcase more local
thousand
restaurants and
percent.
local cuisine. But then I think about you got to be in there for 7 years or however long these leases are. And I think to myself, wow, like some of these independents don't even last three, you know?
It's You called it. That's a big issue that we're seeing because in the
Yeah.
last 10, 15 years, there's been a huge push for local sense of place, taste of place
Right.
in airports, as there should be, right? I think the
Which makes
best
sense.
A ton,
Yeah.
1,000%. I think the best
Yeah.
ways and the best concessions programs that I see out there are the ones that have the balance of national, local, regional, so that
Mm,
because as much as people want to taste local, planes and flying can be really anxious and anxiety producing for folks. So sometimes they want the comfort of something that they know. They want to know what they're getting, right?
mhm.
They're not necessarily there to explore. So it's also finding that balance of thinking about, and again, this is showing you guys how the sauce is made, but also evaluating like what carrier is there, what brand is going to work in a terminal that's run by Delta or United might be different than a brand that's going to, be successful in a Spirit or Southwest terminal. And it doesn't mean
Oh,
that
that's interesting.
there's one that's good and one that's bad. It's just thinking about your audience, which is something when you think about growth, you should be doing whether you're on the street or a nod tread anyway. I think that's where a lot of operators miss the mark because they either don't have a fully defined a sense of who they are as a brand or a concept. And then as part of that, they don't know how to incorporate or have a menu that is geared towards their audience. And that's something too operationally to think about without getting too granular, but you have to think about like your menu, how things are prepared. To me, something that we work with brands on a lot is thinking so much about back of house, truly, like not to be a nerd and reference that, but thinking about like operationally, like what equipment can you use? Also, you need to make sure, airports weren't necessarily designed for restaurants. So I had, and sometimes the people that are writing the bids, they're not restaurateurs. So my personal favorite is when I see something for, a hamburger concept, but it has no fryer. So I'm like, okay, we're not going to have French fries. We're not, there's no venting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
But
It's
it's
like when
like,
they offer you a bag of chips, and I'm like, no, I want fries. I don't want a
Yeah.
bag of chips.
yes,
Right.
yes, there's a time and a place for chips and they're amazing. But yes,
Yeah.
it's trying to like navigate through all of those different layers.
Hmm.
But I think to your point, there's to have the sense of place really be successful, you want to have the airports themselves that are putting out these bids, they're starting to change the definition of what is local. One of the larger airports recently had that you had to have a minimum of 3 locations on the street. And I think that was there as a protection to make sure the likelihood of something closing within the lease term, if there's multiple locations, it protects from that.
It makes a ton of sense.
The demand for group and private events is at an all-time high. Is your business ready to capitalize on all these opportunities? With RestauRent as your booking partner, you can ensure event success this year and beyond.
With no booking fees or commissions, RestauRent has helped over 2,000 restaurants, bars, and breweries reach local event planners who are looking for a space for their next gathering. Whether it's a birthday, anniversary, graduation, or corporate event, RestauRent will get your space booked.
Try it today and receive 3 months completely risk-free by signing up at restaurant.com/podcast. That's RestauRent.com/podcast.